Hello, folks, and welcome to the Richest Men in Town podcast. I'm Mike Freeman, and together with my good friend Tyler Gould, we invite you along on our quest to learn how to be the richest men in town. The show title comes from the line at the end of the classic Christmas movie, It's a Wonderful Life. You've probably seen the movie a million times. It's the scene where little brother Harry Bailey toasts his big brother George, who's dealing with a monumental crisis of finances, of family, and of faith. In that moment, all the problems melt away as Harry gives George the title, the richest man in town. We love that moment and the lessons it teaches, and we're committed to try to live that kind of rich life. This little podcast project is all about learning more about what exactly the rich life looks like as men, as husbands, as fathers, and as friends. Here we will sit down with people that we think have something to teach us about living a rich life, even if they don't think so. So we raise a glass to our guests and to you. We hope you get something out of it, because we know we will.
All right, Mike. We just had the opportunity to spend some time with Gavin Spencer tonight.
I love Gavin Spencer.
Oh man, he's incredible, right? He's one of the most talented guys I know. Like, he's good at everything he does. But in an hour plus worth of time with Gavin, what stood out to you?
Man, it's called The Richest Men in Town, and again, I think we killed it with our guest. He lets you in on a little bit of the recipe for living that life. Man, he's passionate. Taps into that high standard of excellence that he has for himself. We've talked to Quinn the Builder, right? Gavin is a teacher. Loud and clear. You rip him open, and written all over his heart is his love for what he does, love for the kids, love for the program. He makes the comparisons and makes connections between the classroom and the family. He gets vulnerable with us and lets us in on some of the things that he's experienced in life that have taught him things that only hard things can teach. And that's what this show's about. I learned some things that I did not know. We know Gavin Spencer very well, but I learned some things about his upbringing that I didn't know. And it gives me more and more admiration for the man.
Yeah, I feel like there's this there's a depth of character, with Gavin, and we can probably go back and look at all of our guests that we've had and talk about depth of character. I think that a lot of times, one of the purposes of this podcast, right? A lot of times we sell ourselves short. How many times have our guests told us, "Why would you have me on the show?" Because we sell ourselves short, and I think it's important for us all to sit down and take inventory of who we are and how we got there. And Gavin opened my eyes and made me remember some things that I need to be doing, and made me think about some things that I want to be doing. And I just hope that moving into this next week, I can take a little bit of what Gavin taught me tonight and apply that to Tyler Gould moving forward.
Well, if we're struggling with motivation, Gavin is a model of drive. Always pushing to be better, always pushing to do better. And I think that's what I'm taking away. So when I wake up tomorrow morning, Gavin's words are going to be bouncing around in my mind. And hopefully that's the same with the listeners, right? Drive, push, go get it, do better. Not in a trap, right? Not in this hamster wheel that we've talked about before, but in a legit, be that person that you can be, and keep that standard of excellence that he demonstrated. Loved it.
Yeah, I think if you're committed to the time to listen to the richest men in town, and you spend the time to get through a podcast, make sure that we're walking away doing with an action item that we're going to do so that we can be better.
And feel something. As you're listening to Gavin, you're going to feel something. It's going to prick something in your heart. Act on that.
That's it. Take action. Enjoy the show.
All right, Tyler, I want to jump in. I want to get started with a question. Kelly and I were recently invited to a wedding. And as you know, with this COVID world, weddings aren't quite working out as couples have planned. And It's a June wedding, and we just got news that, look, it's not going to happen. If it is going to happen, it's going to be limited guests, and we didn't make the cut. And that's understood. That's understandable.
Right.
So the family, the parents of the bride, are putting together a little video. The video was, hey, do a congratulatory message and then share some marriage advice.
I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
So imagine Mrs. Freeman and I trying to work out a video, unscripted. And of course, I got a whiteboard, and I'm doing I got a full-on lesson, right? Because you tell me marriage advice, and I got to go. I got stuff to say. But before I share mine, what comes to mind, man? If somebody comes to you and says, you're a happily married man, you've been doing this for a little bit, what's the secret? What's the secret to the marital bliss?
Oh my gosh, that's
putting you on the spot, brother.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, I mean, it's like when I think about me as a 22, 23-year-old guy married, man, and then today.
By the way, we just celebrated 22 on Saturday, 22 years.
Oh man, congratulations.
Yeah, right? 22 years. I never had a doubt. I'm sure Mrs. Freeman had plenty of doubts.
Yeah, I mean, probably, yearly, there's those moments.
She went with laughter. Yeah. She went with laughter.
Well, laughter, that's important. I think my thing is, I think it's forgiveness. I think that's it for me. I mean, I'm not saying forgiving my wife. I'm saying my wife needs to forgive me, right?
I'm glad you clarified that, because she is probably going to listen to these episodes once they launch.
Yeah, right. I mean, didn't we say this the other night that we need to be throwing our wives' names out there a little bit more? No, I think forgiveness, because I think that we spend so much time in the beginning part of our lives trying, being focused 100% on us. Individually and our own personal goals, and then we partner up with someone, and it really has to be about the other person for anything to work, and I need to make it about my wife makes it about me, and I think that's what makes it work. But I think if you're not quick to forgive each other, then you're just going to have a big crater that you have to crawl through constantly.
Let me share something with you that I think I got out of the habit of. But when I first got married, I remember being very mindful of her needs. I actually remember including in my personal prayers that I might be prompted regarding the things that she needs.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I can tell you it's been a day since I've done that. And I need to probably go back to that, because I really do think you put the needs in front of, I think that's really, that's what love is, right?
Right.
That she comes first. That the things that we do, we're doing not for ourselves, but for our wives, for our kids. I mean, that's kind of the love that family is built on. So I went with the scripture.
Okay.
And actually, it's kind of a trump. It's a trump card, because it applies to forgiveness. It applies to a lot of things. In 1 John chapter 4, verse 19, John is talking about how he loved the Savior because the Savior loved him first.
Right.
We loved him because he loved us first. And so my advice to this young couple was, man, if you could both try to be first. Try to be the first to express affection. Try to be the first to say, I love you. Try to be the first to do the dishes. Try to be the first to apologize, right? So you're not in this pride struggle of staring contest where it's like, no, I've been wronged, right? And they need to make it right. Man, right. That sounds like that book you love.
Yeah, the Peace Giver.
Peace Giver, yeah. Right? Like, no, you need to do something about them, instead, is it I?
Right.
First. And I think that to me would be a power couple. And I'm not saying I'm there, by no stretch of
things. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I love that. First of all, I think that's spot on. I mean, that's great advice. I think there's a lot of things that, it's a work in progress. And, I'm 20, you did 22. So I think I'm maybe 23, coming up on 23 maybe, or maybe I am 23. I don't even know. But
I want to get that math done.
Yeah, let's edit that part out of the show. But, I think that it's just a work in progress. I mean, honestly, I like myself better today as a husband than I did when I was 25. I think a lot of Ricky may argue this a little bit, but I think a lot of my rougher edges have been worn off
or chewed off.
Yeah. And I like that, I just like that. I like who I've become, and who I'm becoming today more than who I was. And I can tell you at 25, I was really proud of who I was. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Your stuff didn't stink.
Not at all.
Right. It's like, yeah, bring on Father's Day. Who's the best dad?
Yeah, exactly.
I am.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it's just, and I think part of that is, the kids, that you're with, and sort of the lessons they teach you in patience and in love and in, it's just, it's an interesting journey, marriage. And it certainly isn't anything that I thought it was going to be when I got married. Now there's parts of it that are exactly what I had envisioned, I mean, I love my wife more than anything, and she's my best friend, and I love every minute I'm with her. So that is certainly what I envisioned. But the journey of marriage, and where we are today is very different than where I thought we would be. But I like who we've become. There's this great song, actually. There's a musician. His name is Joey Cape, and he's a punk rock singer from a band called Lagwagon, if we really want to go back in the day. But he has a solo project.
We'll have to include that in the show notes. Into the show notes.
But he wrote this song called "Who We've Become," and it's a great song. It's to his wife, and it just talks about kind of this journey about how they're not young anymore, and he doesn't do the things that he thought he would do, like work out every day and all these other things, but he loves who she's become, and he loves who they've become as a couple. And I like that sentiment. I like who we've become as a couple.
The other thought that I shared, the first time I saw it demonstrated to me, I shared this all the time, having the opportunity to counsel families, in various situations in church, trying to help people through some difficult things. I had it one time explained to me on a chalkboard. You draw the Savior at the top, and then you draw a triangle where you have the husband and you have the wife. And as they both focus their attention on drawing closer to the Savior, the distance inherent between them closes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a great analogy. And I think that's sort of the essence of that book, The Peace Giver, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, I love that.
I love that because it puts the emphasis where it needs to be.
Yeah, it definitely.
Right. This young couple, bless their heart. She's not going to change him.
Yeah.
He can change. He's not going to change her. She can definitely change. And they can be influenced to change, but the change has to be that person acting as an agent unto themselves. And even better if that change is pointed towards, drawing closer to the Savior and his example.
Yeah, I think today, we live in this kind of disposable society, right? Where everything is, you pitch it for the next best thing, and I think unfortunately relationships kind of get there as well. And for whatever reason, man, this just maybe is my own, through some of my own experiences with people that I know, but that 20-year mark is a rough one, for couples. Mm-hmm. You get to that spot where you would think you've spent so much time and you've gone through so much together, and you've spent the blood, sweat, and tears raising people, and that you would come out like, all right, we're together. Well, that 20-year mark really is a tough one for people. I've seen a lot of relationships end right around there,
Yeah, but I think of that potter's wheel, right? Things can get out of whack if you get off center,
right?
And you start flinging that clay. But as we are centered, things work out. Like I got to look this up, but it's not the consequences of life that make us happy. It's the focus of our lives that make us happy. What are we focusing on? What are we chasing? What are we trying to work on? And I think that 20-year mark, you can get a little caught up in the logistics of life, right? The day-to-day, the soccer practices, and the scheduling, and it becomes about something other than the two people trying to work it out.
Right. And I think that's a big danger, right? Because I think it all comes mostly from a good place. I'm going to do all these things for my kids. I'm going to create all these opportunities for them. And the next thing you know, you haven't talked to your spouse in a few weeks. And honestly, that's not that far from reality. I actually told my wife a week or so ago, I said, you know what? I feel like we've been doing a really good job of social distancing. We got to figure that out, man. We got to get back on,
close that 6-foot gap.
Yeah. Because it sneaks up on you, and next thing you know, you're looking over your shoulder. You're like, who is this person I'm living with? I've been with him for 20 plus years. I don't even know him. And you've let that kind of happen, So I don't know. It's an interesting thing, It's a lot of work.
Speaking of interesting, Gavin Spencer joins the program. Welcome, Gavin, to the Richest Men in Town. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Hey, before we jump into you're jumping on a moving train, and the conversation is, oh man, we know Gavin, Tyler, and he's going to kill this, right? He's going to kill this topic. I opened up having a conversation with Tyler about marriage advice, right? So here's the situation. Kelly and I were recently asked to record a brief congratulations video for a couple getting married and to share some advice. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Gavin, but you've been at this marriage thing a little bit. How many talk about being on the spot? How many years you've been married to Michelle?
Gosh, I think we're at 26 years.
Okay, so tell me, 26 years. He beats both of us, Tyler.
Yeah.
Tell me there's some advice in there. Off the top of your head, the camera turns to you and you say marriage advice.
And it can't have anything to do with dark socks and business.
Oh yeah. Well, that's obvious.
It is Wednesday night.
Yes.
I'm wearing flip-flops. What did I do wrong? But no, I do some marriage advice. So my marriage advice is that the thing I've learned is it's not worth being right. So when the arguments happen, it's almost better just to say I'm sorry, work through it, and just don't mess around with that. I'm going to argue till I'm right,
Yeah. What cost?
Gosh, it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. And the marriages it's so much smoother that way as well, when you're not always trying to win. And why do we do that with the people we love? Why do we try to win? You know what I mean? Yeah. It should be about harmony and peace.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, you're in the same house, for crying out loud. You want harmony and peace. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm never right. So, I mean, I totally get the idea of like giving it up because you're fighting towards this goal of being right. I just admit, like, very rarely. That's one of my favorite phrases to hear. Like when somebody says, "Hey, Mike, you're right." I'm like, "Hold on, what? What was that? Can you replay that? Because I don't hear that very often."
Yeah, I mean,
I am right a lot of the time, but
well, we do need to warn you. This show is going to be launched out, and there's a possibility that Mrs. Spencer might have an opportunity to hear what you just said.
Yeah, maybe.
I already told Mike that we needed to edit a few of my comments out from before you got in the room anyway. So, we'll see what we can do, Gavin. We'll scrub some stuff.
Yeah. And I think we had some fun with it. Recently, Kelly and I celebrated 22 years. And I used to say that I'm still waiting for it to be hard. I don't say that anymore. But I will tell you, it's never been hard with us. Life has been hard, but we've never been hard. The relationship has not been difficult.
Well, so Mike, you're saying that that you guys have always been good. Everything else is been.
And Tyler, frequently when we get together, I talk about I find myself saying all the time, I'm right where I need to be right.
Yeah, and I love that.
Yeah,
I like that.
Life is life, and it's not gonna be rainbows and unicorns. But we as striving to be that richest men in town that live that rich life, we need to be right where it's important to be right.
See, and I think if you asked Ricky, see that's the real trick here, right? I mean, I can tell you that I'm a pretty easy and amazing guy to live with. But I think if you ask my wife, you might get a little different spin on things. And I will say, and that we've never been in a place where I've doubted our relationship or anything like that. But I know I've made it tough at times. I know that. And I know that she's felt like, she's never verbalized this, but I know that she's felt like, this dude, really? Like an eternity? Like that's a little much. It's a bit much.
Hey, you texted me a quote earlier this morning.
Yeah.
And I think it applies. I think it applies to the topic of marriage. I think it applies to the purpose of the show. Do you have that at the ready?
Let me pull it up. Yeah, I think I do.
I've got it here. I've got it.
Go for it.
Gavin, you're going to love this. Sometimes when I consider what tremendous consequences come from little things, I'm tempted to think there are no little things. And when you look at life, when you look at kids, you look at marriage, it's all big.
It's all big, right? I
That's
just had
Bruce Barton. Bruce Barton, by the way. I want to give the guy credit.
Yeah. So I was thinking last night, my daughter, who is 15 years old, she wanted to go on a hike with her friends. Okay. And when you're a 15-year-old girl, when you go on a hike or you do anything, really the whole reason you're doing it is because there's a photo op somewhere. Right. This is why it's okay.
Yeah.
So she goes on this hike. They go up to the top of this what they call a mountain down here in San Diego, right? Mount Miguel, and it's sunset. And I'm sure they took these beautiful pictures of themselves, right? And then they hike down, and on the way down, and let me just preface this by saying I had just bought new phones for my kids, my two older kids. And that's not my thing, but I did it because I was feeling bad for him. And so anyway, she's hiking down the mountain. She takes her phone out of her pocket. And at that moment she slips and catches herself with her hands behind her and smashes her phone on the rock. Right. And she calls us from when they get to the bottom, and she's sort of confessing this to my wife. I didn't get the phone call. And my wife just lets her have it, And, hey, you know what? I would have too, probably. So I had.
At least it's not double barrel, right? She lets her have it, but
she let her have it because I wasn't on the phone.
Right.
But she comes home and she's like, she's in tears about it, and she's like, I do all my schoolwork on my phone. I do all my soccer stuff on my phone, and it's all true. Right. And so we just decided right there, we feel really bad. This is a bad situation. I'm not, we've had time to think about it. We're not mad at you. We love you. The most important thing is that you're safe. However, right, we are not going to be buying you a new phone, nor will we be paying for the repair of your phone. And so there's a couple things that are going to happen here. Like, you're going to have to figure out, one, how you're going to pay for your phone, whatever that's going to be, new phone, repaired phone. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. And two, you're going to have to figure out how to live without a phone. And believe it or not, these things happened. You know, I'm a witness of these things. I actually stopped at payphones and called people, right? So it didn't go over well, but I get the reason I relay that story is because at one point before Abigail walked in the door with red-faced and in tears, my wife and I had to get together and say, all right, what's the plan here, right? We're on the same page. When she walks in, do we ambush her and just scream her down for a little while? That would be fun, but we opted the other route. And I think when we talk about marriage, I think like that's part of it. I mean, for me, it's like this partnership thing, right? And that's taken me 20 some years to really kind of figure out, is how to be on the same page together and not just kind of run roughshod over my wife and over my kids, and just kind of be a team, you know?
Okay. Side note really quick.
Yeah.
I am not, Abby has not paid me to do this.
Okay.
Picture your daughter at about 10 o'clock at night trying to find a payphone so she can call you.
Well, you know what?
That's where
she's not going out anywhere. Anyway.
I was Mr. Yeah, I was Mr. Like, there is no phone until high school. And then my daughter went to the Dollar movie. You know how sketchy those neighborhoods are? Yeah. And I thought she could use her iPod or whatever and use the Wi-Fi to send us a text, and there was no Wi-Fi. And the movie got out like half an hour early. And I go to pick her up, and she tells me that she's been hanging out at this kind of creepy neighborhood for half an hour. We were at the Verizon store the next day.
I kind of feel like that's good for you, you know?
It builds character.
What do you think?
Those kids up a little bit.
That's right. So what do you think, Gavin? I mean, so you've got 26 years. I mean, how does that, because I think that one of the complications that we were talking about earlier, like how people make it through it, right, is that, or how these relationships don't last for 26 years, is you have kids, they've got their things going on, they're demanding, and it provides this opportunity for you guys to be like on two opposite sides of the room, and then 25 or 26 years later look at each other and go, holy crap, I don't even know who that person is because I haven't hung out with them. I've been so focused on, you know, A, B, and C. So how do you've got kids who've done some great things. And
how many kids you got, Gavin? Break it down for us.
Yeah.
For our
4
listeners.
kids. I've got my oldest who's married now. And then I have a son who's served a mission. He's now in his second year of college. And then Maddie's going to be in her second year of college next year. And then my youngest is going to be a senior next year.
Oh, that's crazy.
We're talking empty nester here in 1 year.
So you got that got that moment coming where you're going to stare at each other.
Well, I have a lot of my philosophies come from things I've learned while I'm teaching. And so it took me a long time to figure this out, but
Hold on, I got to stop you right there. Tyler, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we are in the presence of the Shasta County Teacher of the Year, Gavin Spencer.
I heard that.
So congratulations.
Thank you. It's a very large county. But as a teacher, when I first started teaching, it was all about how good can I make the kids sound? How well can we do at competition? How high of a level can I get them at? You know, that was kind of more of my main focus. And over the last few years, learning about how much there's more trouble out there than I thought, is my focus needs to be for those kids who really need a positive adult in their life. And so over the last few years, I've kind of gone that direction, and I'm going to be a positive adult in these kids' lives. And that's made me so much more patient with the kids. And when a kid acts out, it's not always because they're a bad kid. It's because they went through hell that morning with their situation. Maybe they're living in a hotel or whatever it is. And so my focus has totally changed. And so when I have a kid, I know who's struggling. I always spend a little extra time nurturing, making sure they're okay. And that's changed my whole world in the teaching world. And I feel like I had a student this year. She came over first year here at Shasta. She transferred here, and she was really struggling. Her dad was in the hospital and really sick down in Los Angeles. And I kept asking her, how's your dad doing? Not good. He's in ICU. I think we're going to take the respirator off. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. But I would keep asking her. Anyway, I finally asked one day, and she said he died. And I said, I was so sorry. And I gave her the teacher side hug, where you just hip, you know what I mean? Right. And I said, I'm so sorry, and I'm not a counselor, but she knew that I cared, but I didn't think anything of it until a couple of months later. I think it was at the semester. She said, Mr. Spencer, I just wanted to know, you were the only teacher that asked me and cared about my dad and that what I was going through. And I just wanted to know I really appreciated it. And she really never said a word to me. She's very quiet. I would have had no idea.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of my focus now. Is worrying about those kids. But at the same time, that actually makes me a better teacher anyway, because I connect better with the kids, and I'm still doing the same things, in the class to make the kids make sure they're sounding good and all that kind of thing. But I love that change of focus.
What a great introduction for our listeners to who Gavin Spencer is, right? So Gavin, this show is called Richest Men in Town. What goes through your head when a couple of your friends reach out, say, hey, we got a podcast called Richest Men in Town and we'd like you to be a guest?
I don't feel like I don't feel like guest quality for any kind of show, really. Never thought of myself as a good guest for anything. Maybe a golf foursome, maybe.
You're definitely good at that. Yeah, for sure.
But, hey, if you invited me, this is your problem. This is not my problem.
Hey, Gavin. Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Give me something you love about Gavin Spencer.
Oh man. All right, Gavin, there's so much. Well, one of the thing I love about Gavin Spencer, Gavin, is your sense of humor, man. I mean, we got to spend a lot of time together for a 5-year period, and working with youth, and we spent a lot of time in cars, driving places, and we had prep for these meetings that were like, we were going to put on these sort of give some motivational messages to people, right? And Gavin we'd get in the car, man, and Gavin would always have like a comedian or something just freaking hilarious to talk about. And I loved it because I always felt like when we got to the destination, I was more prepared because I wasn't overthinking things, and I just love your sense of humor, man. It's one of my favorite things about you. So
yeah, I agree. I think I've probably been on record saying top 5 funniest moments in my life. I think Gavin is the protagonist in like 4 of them.
Yeah, I would agree.
None of which are appropriate for this show.
Yeah, I was just going to share a moment, but I just edited it out of my mind. Like, no.
Well done. As that editing muscle wears out, maybe later on tonight we'll drop a few.
Well, some of my best times have been with you guys. Seriously, we've had some fun times. So
yeah, I know, Gavin. I love you as a friend. I admire what you're doing with your family, and as a dad and as a husband, I'm looking for patterns to follow. I don't really have a father figure in my mind. I'm trying to fly this airplane, as I'm building it in the air. And I really appreciate examples like you and Tyler as well. Just because it's hard, right? This is not easy. And I'm not saying, I'm not putting the Spencer family up on some pedestal that you guys are doing it perfectly, right? I think that part of the purpose of this program is to get into that struggle, and and see where we might be able to do better. But I look to you. I'm in education as well. The reputation you have developed. When I see you do what you do, I see a person doing what they're born to do. Last week we had Quinn Lowry on, and he was talking about, he knew early on what he was going to be doing. And I see you as, I don't know if you stumbled into it. I don't know if you had an epiphany as a kid, but you are amazing at what you do. And the community that you've built and the people, the relationships that you have established, man, people love you. They love your program. And it shows in every life that you touch. And there's a lot of Gavin Spencer stories out there. So props to you, fully worthy of the vaulted title of Shasta County Educator of the Year. So
even if there's only 200 people in the county, you know what I mean?
I swear there's 1,000, but
well,
so that's not so Gavin, that's not to blow your head up. That's just like, when we invite you, we mean it.
Well, thank you.
Do
you want to hear how I became a teacher?
Yeah, absolutely do.
I would love it. I would love it. So
Okay.
so Gavin Spencer, this is your life, right?
Well, the funny thing is, when I was growing up, I was all about sports. My dad was an athlete. That's what my siblings did. That's what my uncles and their kids did. And it was just a sports family. So I grew up playing all sorts of sports and things like that. So anyway, my brother and my sister ended up they did sports too, but they got into choir in high school. I was the baby of the family. I'm like 4 and 6 years younger than those two. And so that became a thing that our family did. You know what I mean? And my mom's a singer, and my dad played the piano and the organ at church and things like that. But in high school, I was really more of a basketball. I was more about the sports, but I did join choir because that's what my family did, right? And I was kind of embarrassed around my jock friends. I didn't want them to know we were going to have a concert, or I was kind of self-conscious about it a little bit.
Those two things don't necessarily go together.
Yeah, it's oil and water. Well, until High School Musical came out.
Worlds are colliding.
But my director asked me to send in an audition cassette tape to get into this 5-state honor choir. So I sent it in, and I got accepted. And then I got into an Oregon all-state honor choir, where it's kind of the best singers in the state or whatever, right? Well, this director comes from Minnesota. His name's Anton Armstrong, and he was the conductor for the whole weekend. And he was so inspiring by making the music kind of come to life and sharing his passion about it and actually moving me through the music, that I said, that's what I want to do the rest of my life. That weekend, as a 17-year-old junior in high school, I knew that was what I was supposed to do. And I didn't have to think about it. I graduated, went on a mission, came back, applied for music school, and went on the path to being a choir director. And that's it. I never had to think twice about it.
So there's a couple cool things there. One, you're the original Troy Bolton, right? So that's pretty cool.
Right?
Yes, exactly. So that's killer. But it's funny because I referenced those meetings that you and I and Toby Crawford would go to, right? And talk to youth. And one of the things that I loved, because we did this thing, Mike, where we would get there and we would kind of each take a turn talking to the youth, right? We would have a little bit of a message. And Gavin would just sing. He would sing this with no music, and it sounded amazing. And these kids who were like the most judgmental age group ever, right? 14 or 12 to 18 are sitting there just transfixed on what you're saying. And every time we did that meeting, and we did that, 3, 4, 5 times a year for 5 years?
Yeah.
Right? And every time I was blown away. I was blown away by your talent, but I was blown away by the power that music had, and those kids just loved what was being said. Okay, it was almost a huge drag to follow up to have to talk after Gavin did.
So I get the 17-year-old thing. I do. And I admire that. I can't say that I've had that experience, but I admire people that have had it and the commitment and the drive to do that. Right. But now at where you are now, Gavin, looking back, was it everything that 17-year-old kid thought it was going to be? Is it better? Is it worse? Were there challenges along the way where you almost didn't get into this, right? To get into this path or this track?
Yeah, well, getting in was the easy part, but I definitely have had my fair share of challenges. I mean, when I got my first teaching job, it was at my old alma mater, right? I went back to my high school in Tillamook, Oregon. And I was there with coaches that had coached me and teachers that had taught me. I got right into the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to do choir, and I wanted to coach basketball and track because I was a high jumper. And so I got a job there, and the choir program was falling apart. They had 4 or 5 directors in the last 3 years that kept quitting mid-year. It was a train wreck. Now here comes Gavin Spencer, and it was really easy to be the good guy in that situation, right? Someone who comes in with some stability, with some charisma. It's my first teaching job. I was, I've always been a competitive person. So I'm like, oh man, I'm going to take this thing and we're going to, be really good or whatever. Oh, I was just a young and mature teacher. But so those kids loved me because they had somebody that cared. You know what I mean? That was a really easy thing to do, is to go there. The hard part was the teaching part. And Mike, right? Your first 3 years of teaching, you don't know what you're doing, right? It's a learning process.
Fake it till you make it.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I did. I faked it till I made it. I worked really hard to do my best. And I felt incompetent all the time, just like I think a lot of teachers do. And something happens in that 4 or 5 year mark where you finally feel like, oh, I sort of know what I'm doing now. You know what I mean? But the trouble came when I moved to Redding, right? I was well respected in Tillamook, my hometown. Everyone knew me anyway, right? It's a tiny little town. And so I come to Redding, and I have these big shoes to fill from the old choir director, Ken Putnam, who had been at Shasta for like 33 or something years, right? He built up this big program. And people were telling me the whole time, "Well, you got some big shoes to fill. You got some big shoes to fill." And I come rolling into class my first few weeks, and the seniors and the juniors were just treated me like trash. My whole first 2 years was awful. I at one point I didn't think I was going to come back for that 3rd year. It was so bad. The kids hated me, and it wasn't really because they hated me. Is that they didn't want the old director to leave, and I was kind of like the ugly stepfather, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, I decided, I got to the 3rd year, and it happened. Everything shifted 180. All those kids that I had, my young kids that I had, became mine. And they came by my house, and they put cards on my car. They forked my lawn in a nice way. They dropped donuts by. And anyway, the kids became mine, and that class saved my career, honestly. That class right after. And so, that was a huge struggle.
Well, Tyler, you share that story about Gavin interacting with the youth and singing. And I think one thing that is always contagious in every aspect of life is that passion. Really, Gavin used the word charisma. To me, charisma seems kind of elusive, right? People think like, okay, that person's just charismatic, like they were born that way. Charisma to me is just bold enthusiasm about something. And that will always draw. That passion will always attract. But Gavin takes it up a notch. And I would love to know why, Gavin. You are passionate about everything you do, right? You're passionate about music and you're passionate about your work, but we've been on the beach playing spike ball, and it's like the Olympics, right? It gets intense, and it's passionate, and there's a great quote, might be Emerson or Thoreau, nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. I think about that quote, and I think about Gavin Spencer, and I put those two together. Gavin, why? Can you even, are you aware of that? And maybe why are you like that?
So I was talking to Michelle about this last night.
Yeah.
This is actually kind of a hard subject for me. I know this sounds weird, but the reason that I work so hard to try to do well at things or whatever is really because I fear failure. And I don't want to fail at things. So whatever thing I need to do, I feel the need to do whatever it takes to be my best, because I really fear that failure. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, because I should be motivated by the joy, which I am. Don't get me wrong. Right. But maybe the thing that pushes me the most is I don't want to let people down. I'm doing this big musical, which for the first 5 years felt like it was way over my head putting on a musical production, right? And then I found some success. And the next 5 years, guess what? It still feels like it's over my head. And even like last year, it's still, you know what I mean? I always still feel like, oh my gosh, how did I do that? It's like this something magical happened and made it come together. And Michelle was kind of like, Gavin, it's because you know what you're doing. It's because you have skills and, you've developed these skills. But you know what I mean? I don't know. That's a tough one. But I've always wanted to be good at things, but I always feared the failure too. So that would push me harder to work on those things, I guess.
I think there's a lot of people though that can relate to that, especially that idea of kind of doubting ourselves. And it's funny because I have a tendency to do the same thing, right? I'll do something really well and I walk out of it and I go, whew, that was lucky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've been doing that lucky thing for like 25 years, And
are you wondering if it's going to run out?
Yeah, I keep
every year.
You think that someone's going to finally go, that guy's been pulling the wool over our eyes for that long? You know what I mean?
That's exactly, seriously, I don't know. Why does the brain think like that?
I don't know. It's terrible.
Hold on though. Let's get into your brain a little bit, because I think one of the things that you have going for you that could actually spin into that fear of failure is, Gavin, your standards are exceptionally high. And I admire that. That's on the list of things that I admire about you. But that is setting yourself up, right? Your standards and what is, you don't mail it in. You're more than fine. You're committed to excellence, and that life, that's a difficult road when you choose to try to strive for excellence in everything that you're trying to do, right? I hate to be like Al Davis' commitment to excellence here.
Best football team ever. So go ahead.
Well, I believe in that principle a lot. I mean, it's like, if you're going to do it, let's do it. Let's rock it. Let's, and with my students, it's all focused on that. Hey, we're going to meet potential, right? We're going to find the potential. We're going to meet it. And by the way, you reminded me of something. You were talking about charisma. My very favorite book that I have, it's of course an educational book. It's called Choral Charisma, and it's
Choral
just a book
Charisma.
about
Choral. Hold on, let's pause and put that up on our Richest Men in Town bookshelf. I never thought we would have Choral Charisma.
No one's going to read it. I don't know what you're putting it up there for. But I love the whole point of the book is getting your students in the right frame of mind to actually be great, because there's a lot of building that happens before they can just be great. It's more than just sounding good in a rehearsal. You know what I mean? We have to break down barriers. And, I always start my classes with, okay, guys, first day of school, the most important thing in my classroom is safety first. We talk about safety. It says, I'm going to be asking you to do a lot of weird things in front of your peers. And we're going to learn to do them together, and we're going to support each other. And we're going to make weird sounds. We're going to make funny, you know what I mean? You're going to do some strange things. And guess what? That's how it's supposed to be. And we're going to support each other. When someone gets up here and sings something, we're going to clap, we're going to smile, and we're going to let them know they did a great job, even if it's terrible. And you know what I mean? But it's all about setting up.
But that gets into that
classroom.
It gets into that Maslow's hierarchy, right? You can't take risk if you don't feel safe.
Right.
That's basic needs. Yeah.
And then once people can be vulnerable, and then in just whatever it is that we're doing, exercises, the whole point of good art or good music is being vulnerable enough to share your soul with people in music and in text. You know what I mean? And when people do that, that's when you have those special moments, when it's sincere and genuine, comes from the heart. People are really expressing true feelings. That's when the magic happens.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead, Gavin.
Well, and I just wanted to say, I mean, this kind of connects with church a little bit too. I believe that through music, you feel the Spirit, just like you do in hearing maybe testimony or whatever it might be, that there is spiritual power in the music, and that people can be moved in a spiritual way through the music when it's done, you know, when it's genuine, you know.
No, I agree with that. I love that thought. And you know, there's a couple things, you know, I'm a closet. I'm coming out of the closet right here. I am a musical fan. I love musicals. And I went and saw Les Miserables that your high school did. I was freaking floored, man. I don't know. I'm sure I told Mike Freeman this a million times. I was like better than some of the other performances of that play that I've seen. And it you know, the caliber of the students that you had, I'm sure, was great, but there's a linchpin in that makes everything work. And that's, you know, that's your leadership for sure. And I've been privileged to be around your leadership in different meetings, and your charisma is a big thing, a big part of that. But let me ask you this, Gavin, at what point in your life, you talked about vulnerability, you talk about, you know, the ability to kind of step out of your comfort zone and stretch your students so that they feel comfortable and confident in doing different things. I mean, what experiences in your life from early on led you to that point where you were willing and able to do that?
That's such a good question. You know, honestly, a lot of it's happened while being in the classroom, because in order to get your kids to be vulnerable, you have to model it yourself. And you know what? I'm just trying to be real with the kids, because I think Mike will tell you, kids know when you're being sincere, and they know when you're faking it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I'm very open with my students when I make a mistake, or maybe I even get upset, because sometimes when you're passionate about something and maybe someone kind of defies that while you're in the middle of the process, you get upset.
They don't share your same passion.
It's like, what is the matter with you? But you know, some you know, if I get upset or something and maybe it's too much, I'm not afraid to say, hey guys, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have blown up like that. You know, that was my bad. And I hope you forgive me and start fresh tomorrow. And you know what? When you're real like that, they're like totally cool. Because everyone has those moments, right? We're not all perfect.
Yeah.
And so it's just really about being real. But that's what I love about my job. I usually get kids for 3 or 4 years straight, and I would get to build all these awesome relationships with these kids. And I see them come in as freshmen, shy and insecure and scared to talk to people. And then I watch them in Madrigal dinner, and they're talking to these adult guests, and they're singing for them, and they're problem solving, and they're having to be poised while they're trying to figure things out. And I just love seeing the growth from freshman to senior year.
But I will awesome. on that same point where you were talking about, you know, a little bit about your faith and the power of music, and you can take that music and you can line up 10 people, and that feeling is universal, right? When I'm listening to your production of Les Mis, I'm feeling the Holy Ghost confirm true principles demonstrated in the life of Jean Valjean, and everybody's feeling it. It's just, we need to get better at being intentional about pointing out what that is, right? And being sensitive to that, because I'll tell you, I can't even necessarily talk about this without choking up. But Tyler, every year I've been a part of his Madrigal dinner. My daughter's in his program. This Madrigal dinner is set at Christmas time. It's right. Elizabethan, right? It's we're going back in time. Closing night, when we're closing up and we borrow a church for 2 weeks, right? The parents and the volunteers are taking down things. Gavin has alumni come out of the woodwork for that closing night, and they circle him in this chapel and they sing these songs, and these are grown people. They're not in high school anymore, right? They have children of their own, and some of the children are in his program, and he's in the center, and they're firing off requests, and he conducts the music and leads them in this singing, and it is amazing to see. It's beautiful to hear. And I actually have video, like I'm a closet Gavin Spencer fan. I have video of that night on my phone, right? That's on my Hope page. When I need to feel something to give me some wind in my sails, sometimes I go to the music that his kids performed that night. And if I showed you the look on his face while he's leading that music, it's pure bliss. Right. Well,
that is that night. And by the way, that night came as an accident one year, a few years ago.
What a tradition.
There were some alumni there, and hey, let's sing. You know what I mean? And then it's like, oh, that was pretty awesome. And then all of a sudden, it's more and more. And I don't know how many people we had this year, but 75 or 80 kids were in that circle. And
it's kind of cool too, because when they're single, they get all dolled up, right? They get all dolled up, trying to put themselves out there.
But I will say it's a highlight for me because these kids come back and they're here because they care about something that I was a part of, and I feel connected with them through this. And it's the one thing we all share together is this connection of the music is the one thing that actually bonds kind of our relationships together. And when I watch those kids sing and it's from the heart, it just that gets me. Seeing that something that I was able to be a part of affected them in a way like this, I mean, that really touches me.
That's powerful, man.
What does faith do for you, right? I mean, so our guests have been members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the initial episodes, and as we branch out, that may not be the case with everyone we talk to, but I can tell you that part of that recipe for living that richest men in town life is belief in something beyond ourselves, right? What has faith done for you, Gavin, growing up or even now where you're at? What does that provide?
Are we talking religion here a little bit now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've always had a strong belief that there was a God, someone created this earth. My mom and my dad are both like nature people. My dad took us hiking, camping, exploring, hunting, all sorts of stuff in the mountains. And that was just a big part of our life. My mom loves animals and nature. She talks to animals. She's actually sort of self-proclaimed herself as Mother Nature a couple of times, the actual Mother Nature. But anyway, so to me, just the world, I mean, it's just too much to have just happened. It's too perfect. anyway, so I've always had a faith. And then, you know, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And of course, I have a testimony of God and Jesus Christ. But the thing that makes what we believe unique is a testimony of a modern prophet who restored the gospel. That was the thing that anchored me. I had a moment on my mission when I was teaching a guy that had been taught like 20 times before, been taught about Joseph Smith and the Sacred Grove. Is it okay if we go there on this?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird for everybody.
No, I mean, in my mind, Gavin, I hear out of your mouth right now, 2 + 2 is 4.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Like to me, that's truth. And we're not here to debate it. That's just written on my heart. It's written on your heart. And this show's about sharing from your heart. So we're okay.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is when we shared that experience that young boy had, he'd heard it like 10 times before, but for some reason this time it affected him in a different way. And he just started to weep. And I started to choke up. And just like you said before, we were all feeling the same feelings in that room at the same time. It was obvious. And this guy had been putting off, you know, the inevitable baptism until that moment. It hit him so hard, he couldn't deny that it was the truth. So anyway, that one moment's been one of the big ones. It's kind of been just a foundation in my life. And so that kind of
sounds like a tiny hinge, right? One of those tiny hinge moments where everything changes.
Yeah, definitely one of those. Yeah.
So Gavin, let me ask you this. If we're going to march down the path of faith and religion and all this good stuff, which I love, and I could do this for hours, right? But, you know, here you are, 26 years in, of marriage, four kids. Your faith is strong, and I've seen it from you, and I've been around you, and your faith has strengthened my faith, and I love that. So how do you convey that faith in a way to your own children and family, and put them on that same path, so that they have that same sort of foundational direction that you've had?
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing about that is I talk about it to them like I would talk about it, simply, matter-of-factly, sort of, in a way. But you know, when you're talking about making decisions, or we talk about temple marriage or going on a mission or whatever, those are just things that are just sort of normal talk in the family, you know.
Yeah.
But to me, I always talk to the kids about it. I'll say, hey, you know, Jackson, do you ever feel, have people ever asked you if you wanted to drink, you know, at a thing or whatever, you know, or start asking the questions, and how do you feel about it, and those sort of things. And I think just being open about certain things has really helped.
Because here's the thing, Gavin, it's like you're in a classroom with however many kids, 30 kids or whatever it is, right? And they look at Gavin Spencer and they say, this guy is my hero to a certain degree, right? He's teaching us the things that we want to know here in the classroom about music, and we're all passionate about this music and we love it, and we'll go to the end for Gavin Spencer, right? And then you leave that classroom and you come home and you've got 4 kids who think, Gavin Spencer, man, my dad sometimes, I don't know if he got it, right? And maybe I'm projecting, Gavin, but these are what my kids think about me, all right? So, but how do you balance that with, you've got a captive audience at school who say, dang, I will do whatever Gavin says, and then you come home and you look at these 4 kids who say, yeah, I love my dad, I like my dad, but I don't really want to do everything that my dad's telling me to do. So how do you go from that sort of that passionate discipleship of the classroom to this the doubting Thomases at home that you've got to corral on a regular basis?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I don't know if the approach is right or not, but we're not like the forceful, you know, you're going to believe this, you're going to whatever, you know what I mean? That's not the way we roll. I don't know, except for we just try to live well. We try to talk about stuff. And hey, if you decide you don't want to serve a mission, that's okay. Okay. I don't want you to, unless you want to, you know, we'll talk about that too. And I guess what I really hope is that at some point along the line, they have their own moment. You know what I mean? Their own special moment that tells them, oh my gosh, I get this. This feels right. I mean, when I look at, here's something, when my dad was older, you know, maybe a few years before he died, we talked about the gospel. And he always said, you know, I don't know if I ever had one of those special moments that told me that this thing is true. But he said, everything just feels right about the way that we live. We try to live a Christ-centered life. And we try to follow all these teachings and things, but I've never really had that spiritual thing. And I'm like, Dad, the fact that it all feels right is a spirit telling you that this is right, because when it feels right, that's it. That's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope my kids, however it is, have a moment, you know, or several little moments or hinges, as Mike likes to call them.
No, I agree with you. I think that those, I think that it's a series of small events, right? Go back to that quote that Mike read, right? The small things, it turns out there are no small things, right? I think I tell my kids all the time, like, I don't care if we read the scriptures together as a family and we pray together as a family. It's important, but I'm more concerned about, what are you doing on your own time? Has it become important enough to you that you want to do that on your own? And I'm in your camp, Gavin, in that I don't, as much as sometimes I'd like to rule with an iron fist, I don't. I want it to be a fluid discovery, right? And I like those. I like those thoughts.
Well, Gavin, you have kids. You have kids that have left the house, right? How does it feel when they call you out of duty, or they call you because they love you and miss you and want to hear your voice? And to me, that relationship is the same. We're children of a Heavenly Father, and we can bow down in duty 5 times a day, or we can connect and say, today was hard, right? Need some help.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Dad, I need some money, right? Like, we want to have the relationship where our kids, if they're following our example, they're following our example out of love and out of, like, my dad was always happy and it worked for him, right? Versus that iron fist of, like, by golly, you're my kid and this is how it is, my way or the highway. Well, guess what? A lot of kids take the highway.
It's a new generation for sure. I mean, I think you even look at teachers. I mean, I always look at this as old school teachers, old school coaches. That doesn't fly anymore.
Right.
It doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you show up to practice. Okay, everyone, leave the basketballs in the bag and get on the line.
Right.
You know, we're going to run the whole practice. Yeah. See you later. I've got video games I can play, you know, but I just don't think that works anymore. And kids, I think, feel a lot more entitled to do what they want nowadays. They don't feel as much power from authority figures, because really that's not telling, but it is kind of a big hoax. We don't really have any power. Right.
Yeah. What are your kids teaching you, Gavin? I mean, you shared a little bit about what you're hoping that they're getting. What are you getting from them?
Well, I'll tell you, my daughters teach me love and kindness. You know, Maddie, she'll just walk up to me and give me a hug, you know, and just before this, I was telling them, oh guys, I'm going to be in the bedroom. I'm doing this, you know, podcast thing or whatever. And they're like, are you nervous? I'm like, yeah, I'm nervous. I don't want to sound like an idiot down there. And they're like, you're going to be fine. And Maddie's like, you're the coolest dad in the world. And that actually meant a lot to me, even though she was kind of saying it. I think she actually was even being real about it.
Well,
so,
of course you're going to crush it with that bouncing in your head, right?
Yeah. No doubt.
You know, and when my kids ask me if I want to do something, hey, Dad, you want to go play disc golf? Or, hey, Dad, you want to go for a run or something? The fact they want to spend time with me, I don't know how it all happens, but I'm just happy that they want to, at some level, spend time with me, you know? And Amber said, you know, it'd be cool, Dad. You know, we're really good travelers. The others aren't as good, but like Amber was in Europe for a few weeks, right? Just traveling at one point. She said, we should go travel together, just the two of us. That'd be really fun, you know? Things like that just makes me, I don't honestly know how, but I think it just comes from being real. And I've, you know, I'm a less selfish dad than I was 10 or 15 years ago when I was I'm still career driven, but back then career at times probably was a priority over my family, which was a mistake. You know what I mean?
Well, that gets into Tyler, what you were talking about early in your marriage, right? At that 25 years old, your priorities are different. You know, the challenge with life is you only have perspective through experience. So when you don't have experience, you lack perspective.
Yeah.
And so everything is as it's happening to you. You don't think of your spouse. You don't think of your kids. It's like, wait, this hurts me, so therefore it sucks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I had a lot of learning to do, you know. I mean, the first couple of years of marriage was probably the hardest, just because you just don't get it. And there's just not a lot of selflessness, you know, a lot of selfishness, maybe, you know what I mean? And I got married and we got married and we started college. I mean, I was married all through college, the entire way through.
That's a party.
Yeah. I felt actually it still felt like a party, but it felt like more like a party that we might have. Like we were hanging out with married couples and stuff, you know. It was really weird.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting because I think that you know, Mike and I were talking the other day. There's a buddy of mine who right, my friend of mine, you know Kurt Holmgren? Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, so Kurt sends me this text the other day, and it's a picture of this friend of mine, of Kurt and I's, and he's on a date with this 20-year-old girl, you know, and he says it's great to be out after quarantine, you know, and I'm like, what the? And so Kurt says, what's going on, man? Like, this is definitely not his wife. Like, what's happening? So I was like, I don't know. I'll ask him, dude. So I sent him a text. I said, hey, I saw a picture of you out with your daughter or your sister. Like, I'm not sure who that was, right? And he says, that was my girlfriend, man. I got divorced and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
So he left, he leaves the church or he leaves his wife, and he has 4 kids at the time. And then Kurt sends me a text. I said, all right, Kurt, I asked him. And he said, is he still active in the church? And I said, I don't know, man. Like, do you want me to, you know, what do you want me to do here? Like, I'd be a detective. And Kurt said to me, Tyler, if I was struggling in that way or having a hard time, I would sure hope that you would come to me and ask me some hard questions. Right. And so I sent this guy another note, and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. Are you still in the gospel? You know, and he's not. You know, he'd left the church and whatever, and gave me some of his reasoning for that, and just made me think like how fragile all that is. You know, if we don't put our energy into it, right, whether that's marriage, whether that's being a father, whether that's our faith, you know, if we take our eye off the ball for a moment, we can find ourselves, you know, light years away from where we thought we would be or we thought we should be, you know.
Right.
And I guess, you know, we can see that with our own kids, but how do you keep yourself grounded and focused, not only in faith, but as a couple? How do you guys stay in lockstep as a couple. And I know it's not possible all the time, right? We have our ups and downs, but it's got to be something that you can look at and say, hey, this is how we've been able to weather the storms. 25 years in, you know, Mike and I were talking about this before you came on. 20 years, I know a lot of people at right around the 20-year mark, the relationship disappears, you know?
Yeah.
So what is that keeps you and Michelle going in the same direction and as partners in the same direction?
Well, I do agree with you. Really quick is that everything we do in life is fragile. Like it'd be so easy just to give up on marriage.
Yeah.
It'd be so easy just to stop going to church. I mean, I got a golf game that I could use those Sundays. You know?
Day off, another day off and 10% raise.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard. And honestly, you know, I love the gospel, and I'm real down to earth about it. Of course, I love this church at home right now. I think it's awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's very convenient, and it's actually kind of brought our family together, I think, in a good way.
Wow.
And I've been able to do Skype church, not Skype, I just say Skype, Zoom church with the family and things like that. But it'd be so easy to just let it all slip away. It wouldn't take anything at all.
Yeah.
1 or 2 Sundays. So I think that the point to anything that's, you know, for the long run, you have to keep your guard up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't let that guard down, and you just have to, hopefully you learn from experience. Like, you know, Michelle and I do not fight nearly or argue as much as we used to, because I think we can read the signs. Like, you can tell when it's a bad time to,
right.
Sometimes it's better just to, you see that look and it's like, yeah, I'm really sorry, you know, and the hugs, you know, you just, you know, and sometimes it's, you know, you have an argument and that happens too, but it's been so much less over the last 5-10 years than it was in those first years, you know. And I don't know, for some reason, I think this is the best part of our marriage that we've had so far.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we kind of figured out, we're on the same page with our kids.
Yeah.
You know, and there's other things I think that are important that are just like non-gospel, like budgeting together and having a budget and a plan. So you're not fighting about money. You kind of agree on what you're going to do with all your stuff. Because, right, isn't it? Most fights are going to be about probably finances,
sex and money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. When it gets down to it, I know it's funny because you mentioned earlier, you know, you said I'm motivated by fear, you know, to a certain degree, and I think, I don't know, maybe we all can relate to that. I that definitely drives me in a lot of different ways, and I think that's I don't know. That's a hard thing to think about, how fragile things are, right? I mean, like you said, it doesn't take much to watch things drift away. You know, I do think that
I think drift is a great word.
Yeah.
You know, and I think of a book I read, Living Forward by Michael Hyatt, and he talks about that tendency. You don't have to do anything to drift. The challenge with drifting is it doesn't ever take you to a desired location.
Yeah.
No one ever drifts to a cool place. You know, a decade goes by, 2 decades go by, and you realize that you're in this place that you would have never picked for yourself. You're in this destination that you would have never done. And by doing nothing, you landed there.
Yeah.
You know, and that freaks me out. Like, that taps into some of the things that I'm fearful of.
Absolutely.
Right. Because I want to act, and I want to act and not be acted upon.
Yeah.
But as men of faith in 2020, I can tell you too, that there's quite a headwind.
Yeah.
You know, there is that resistance. And I need you to know, like, we've talked about this before. This is a selfish venture, this podcast, that I'm looking for things to help me And yeah, they might help some of my friends, they might help other people. The other day, so the podcast hasn't launched yet, the episodes aren't live. The other day I'm listening to a previous episode with Toby Crawford, and my mom's in the car, and we start talking about chains, and we start talking about things that we carry that make it hard to do this thing we call life. We turn the episode off, and my mom and I grab some lunch, and she turns to me and says, "Hey, that thing that you guys were talking about on your podcast about chains? I'm carrying a lot of chains, and that breaks my heart." And that's why I'm doing this, Gavin. That's why I've invited you to the show, because I think that if there's some things in your experience that can help people make change while we still have some game, right? Each and every one of us can do something right now. But we're all carrying stuff, right? So I guess my question to you, Gavin, would be, everybody is dealing with things. How do you deal? Right? Life in the Spencer home isn't perfect. When it does get hard, how do you deal with the hard?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think I'm lucky to have a good spouse who keeps me grounded, and she knows me. Michelle knows when I'm struggling, and I get really stressed out when, well, this is everybody, right? When you're going through things are never good, but when it's heat of musical season and I'm not home at all, I'm working 80-hour weeks, and I'm living at the theater, designing lighting and all sorts of stuff, and then rehearsals. And then I come home and I haven't been home. That's usually when things aren't good, when I haven't been home. And then it feels like our family is a little bit disconnected in some way, shape, or form. And then maybe I'm stressed out from the show, and then I lash out at one of my kids. You know what I mean? And then I feel terrible about myself because I've lashed out at my kids because I'm stressed out from school. And you know what I mean? So then I have to take a moment to myself, try to get some composure. Sometimes I'll even pray in private in hopes to kind of lose that feeling and be ready to apologize, which I end up doing quite a bit, but I think that's a good thing too, though. Teaching my kids it's okay to apologize, even for an adult to apologize to a kid when you make a mistake. But I think Michelle really helps keep me grounded when things are hard for me, and then when there's difficult times with our kids, I think we work well together, trying to problem solve ways to figure out how to deal with things. I know, as you know, one of my children was very difficult growing up, and it was a huge challenge. I don't think this child of mine would mind if I talked about it, because she's totally awesome, and
she's in a good place now.
She's in a very good place right now, and I just love her to death. So, but she went through a lot of struggles in school, got with the wrong friends, started doing things she shouldn't be doing. And then it just got worse and worse. She started bringing these friends into our home, and then bringing substances into our home. And she trying to run away, sometimes without shoes on, not sure why. But it got pretty bad there for a while, where I had to force her to stay in the house. She was walking out the door, and I had to physically grab her by the shoulders.
Wow.
And keep her from running out. And then by some miracle, we had a conversation with Andy and Emily, who is that's Michelle's sister and her husband. And they said, maybe Amber should come live with us in Scappoose, Oregon. Maybe. And one of them, I can't remember, said, I kind of feel like maybe that's something we're supposed to do. And that was kind of crazy. So brought it up to Amber, and she's like, no way, I'm not going to Scappoose. I'm not doing that or whatever. So one morning I was home. I had a late class that year. I think I had a like prep 1-2 or came in third period and went 3 through 7. And I was
gig.
home. Yeah, but I asked, I said a prayer. I was home alone. I said a prayer. I was in Amber's room, and I was thinking, please, Heavenly Father, help me to know what we should do with Amber, and that if her going to Scappoose is the right thing to do. And I had this overwhelming feeling come over me that was the right thing to do. It was powerful. And then I went to school, and Amber, I think she texted me and said, can I talk to you? And Amber came into my office that same day and said, Dad, this isn't what I want to say, but I kind of feel like it's the right thing for me to do, get away from here and go to Scappoose.
Wow.
That's goosebumps, bud.
That was one of the most spiritual moments of my life. And I knew that other parents were going to judge me for sending my child off, basically, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, but I didn't care because I knew it was the right thing to do. And it turned out to be the right thing to do. She will admit that too today. But that was that's one of those moments where it was meant to be, you know.
Isn't it amazing? I mean, I know her. She's an amazing young woman, happily married. But isn't it amazing? Aren't we just so fortunate that we're not, hopefully, not judged by the worst thing we've ever done?
Heavens.
Like when it's all said and done, we are complicated people. But I think that there are people that walk around and say, oh no, that one time back in 1994, Mike Freeman was this thing, and he's always going to be that thing. You know, similar to Jean Valjean and that storyline, right?
I love it. Yeah.
That really resonates with me.
And here's the beauty of it, though, right? I mean, we're all a product of our experiences, right? And we can have these experiences that are rough, that we look back on. We could look back on and say, man, that was an embarrassing, whatever episode in my life. But we can still have those embarrassing episodes in our life and make them powerful moments, right? I mean, there's I have this list in my head of things that I've done, or I've been witness to, or I've experienced in some way, shape, or form that are terrible, right? That I don't want to have happen again. But in hindsight, I wouldn't change one of those things, right? I mean, every one of those things, as bad as they were, I can look at it now and say that was a lesson I needed to learn. Whether it was a lesson I needed to learn of what not to do, or whether it was a lesson I needed to learn of how to have compassion on someone, or whether it was a lesson I needed to learn about how to forgive myself, right? I think that there's just this list, and I hope, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I compile that list and I look at it on a regular basis. I'm always looking. I think if we go back to, circle back to religion for a second, this idea of remembering is so important, right? We want to remember all of these experiences that we've had that sort of anchor us to our faith. But I think it's equally as important to remember those experiences that we have that could have been detrimental to who we are. And we can recognize that we had the fortitude to overcome that experience, right? I mean, We're better than we think we are most of the time.
Do you ever think back? So I'm picturing your daughter's wedding day, Gavin, right? And here you are on this kind of a mountaintop moment in your life. Do you ever think back on that moment in her bedroom and that prayer?
Yeah.
And what if you didn't, right? And I'm not a fatalist person, right? I'm not saying that our lives are scripted, but there are moments where it's almost like those choose your adventure books that we used to read as kids, right? Millennials aren't going to get that. I don't think they have those anymore. But, the idea of like, in that moment, Gavin, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And if that prayer isn't offered and that heart isn't softened, where is your daughter now? Right.
Right. When I look at her now, it's hard to even imagine that she was doing that. She was like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But to Tyler's point, all of those experiences make her the young woman that she is today. Right.
Yeah.
And it brings to mind, there's a poem. I'm sorry. There's a poem. Robert Browning Hamilton says this: I walked a mile with pleasure. She chatted all the way, but left me none the wiser for all she had to say. I walked a mile with sorrow, and ne'er a word said she, but oh, the things I learned from her when sorrow walked with me. You know, there are just some things that we have to learn the hard way. And there are some things that we have to realize, I can't do this.
Well,
I tried. I can't
right.
do it by myself.
And the beautiful thing about that is that Amber, or any one of us, right? You're going to have an experience at some point in your life where you're gonna be talking to someone about some hard things that they're going through. And the only way you're going to be able to connect with them on a real level is because you've experienced some of those things yourself, you know? And I think that, Gavin, when you're talking about that student who is experiencing loss, you know, and you're extending your arm and being compassionate towards that student, I would imagine there's some empathy from you because of some experiences that you've gone through in your life. Right. So it just puts us in this position to be more compassionate, more caring, and more loving. And Mike was saying, you know, asking me this before you came in about my marriage. And I said, I like who I am today a lot more than I like who I was when I was 25. And at 25, I thought I was the greatest, you know, but today those rough spots have been worn down, and they're softer. There's not the hard edges, and I like that. And it's because of this path filled with experiences that were mostly difficult. You know, I used to tell people all the time when they'd come in and want to talk to me about some hard things they're going through, I'd say, you know, when I was young, I thought everything should be rainbows and unicorns constantly. But I realize now, I'm 45 years old, that it's pretty much a storm, and every once in a while the clouds part. And you get to look at the sun and go, oh my gosh, that is beautiful, right? And we enjoy that a little bit more.
Well, I think that for some reason, I don't know if it's the same idea, but I like doing hard things. I like accomplishing hard things. I don't know if that's the same idea, but even though we go through these big trials, to be able to come out at the end of it and have it make you better, having it teach you to make you better, you know? So like things like training for a marathon or something like that, to me, I'm super slow, you know what I mean? But I like the idea of being able to accomplish something that is hard. You know, it makes you be disciplined. It makes you do things that you don't want to do. Those mornings you have to get up and go do your thing. But I think we learn this in life, and I think people actually crave that, though. You know, they may not know it even, but going through something hard. My students say it all the time. Man, I'm glad I did the musical, even though there was a lot of hours of rehearsal time in the theater where they could have been doing something else. I'm so glad that you pushed us and made us do this. And I think deep down, we want to accomplish difficult things because it makes us feel good about ourselves.
I like that. Yeah, I agree.
What gives you hope these days? What are you excited about?
Well,
I mean, I think in this time of uncertainty and worldwide pandemic, right? Like it might be hard these days to find hope and find something to look forward to. But I'm curious, what's Gavin Spencer excited about?
Well, I'm really nervous about next year because I'm not sure what it's going to be. But at some level, I guess I might be excited because I know I'm going to have to learn some new skills and new things. And I'm talking about taking on some new challenges, like learning how to do some studio recording and video editing. And
we could use some of that.
Yeah. I'll do a unit on podcasting. But those are some things I'm kind of excited to learn, some of these new skills that I haven't taken the time to do. But yeah, I'm a little nervous. I mean, Michelle will tell you, I'm always worried about my program and the strength of it. And am I going to have kids coming back? Or am I going to lose numbers from this whole thing? Because, you know, it is kind of, and what I do is kind of a numbers game. And in order to do a musical or a madrigal dinner, you have to have a certain number of, you know, kids that can pull it off and things like that. And so I do worry about that kind of a thing. So I just it's just kind of like the unknown. My mom will tell you, I was not the guy who liked any change in my life. I liked my routines. I liked knowing what was happening. And this is kind of a weird one for me.
Can we talk about your mom? I was there behind scenes, and you know, there's that saying, the show must go on. And this last season of your Madrigal Dinner, it's crunch time for you, and it's a super stressful time. And I find out that your mom was sick. And you know, here we just went through Mother's Day. And this is the first Mother's Day without your mom, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
So,
if it's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. It was during Madrigal Dinner. I was just about ready to go over to the church that night, and I get a call from my stepdad. He said, "Your mom's in the hospital. She has an infection. I'm sure things are going to be okay, but I'll let you know if things get worse or whatever," things like that. So I'm like, okay. It might've been an hour later. She's not doing well. Matter of fact, the doctor said, if your family's going to want to see her, they need to hustle over here to the hospital here. Well, that's Tillamook, Oregon. That's an 8-hour drive, right? So I called my people from Madrigal Dinner. I said, guys, you guys are on your own. Thank goodness I had the most amazing kids that can lead themselves. And I had this amazing machine of adults that Mike is a part of that was able to run things behind the scenes. And I'm sure it went off without a problem. But I got in my car and I drove to Tillamook and got there about midnight that night. And it was just me and my stepdad and my mom. My other siblings couldn't get there right then. My brother was working or whatever. So that moment when I went into the room, she was not very coherent. She was in a lot of pain, but she was kind of like unconscious. Like she didn't know, she couldn't tell what was going on. So I said, "Mom, Gavin's here." She gave me one look and a little smile in the eyes. And that was it. I mean, that was the last even recognition that I had with my mom. And so anyway, it was kind of a blessing because I got to play the role of comforter for my stepdad. It was just me and him for about 12 hours or so. And yeah, my mom was a special lady. Crazy as can be, let me tell you, like crazy. Like the things my mom did when we were younger, like some people think it might have been like almost abusive, but it was awesome. Let me explain that, okay? Because abusive is not awesome. But when we were kids, my mom used to, I'm talking little, right? Little kids. I was probably 6 and my siblings are a little older. She used to dress up in this costume that was a black cape and this realistic looking witch mask. And she would like go outside and then put her face up on the window and look at us. And the first time it happened, I just bawled. like a baby. And my siblings are like, "It's going to be okay. It's just the phantom." So this phantom was a thing my mom made up. that the Phantom came out on full moons.
So I love it.
And mostly I remember during the summertime, and we'd have friends over, and it became a legend. It was kind of like one of these Sandlot kind of legends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the kids in the neighborhood knew about the Phantom. Like, my mom's crazy, but the kids would walk by the house to go to a little convenience store, which is close by. And they look up in our like upstairs window, and that face would be up there watching them. You know what I mean? But then they'd come around to come play or whatever, and we'd be out on the jungle gym in the backyard messing around. Dusk, full moon, and we catch a glimpse of something at the corner of the house, and we look, and that face is just staring at us. So we start running around the other side of the house to get away from the Phantom, and it starts chasing us. So we run all the way around the house and then back inside the front door. And then my mom comes in the room and says, "What's going on, you guys? What's the matter?" She climbed through her bedroom window, took her costume off, ran out as fast as she could so that she didn't look suspicious. "What's the matter, kids?" One time, okay, get this. One time she chased us around the house, and for the first time ever, the Phantom ran into our house, chased my brother upstairs. Now, we all kind of thought it could be my mom, but honestly, we didn't know. It was scary. She chased my brother upstairs, and my brother was 4 years older than me, and he's probably like 12 or 13 or something. And he went to take the mask off, like I know it's you, Mom, kind of thing. I'm taking it
like
off.
Scooby-Doo.
And the Phantom punched him in the stomach.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
Gavin, why did she do that?
She loved to create adventures. She was all about adventure all the time. On birthdays, you might get blindfolded and go in the car, and she'd take you around circles and all different places. But then at the end, you'd end up at like your favorite restaurant, and you'd have your birthday dinner at a restaurant or something like that.
Awesome.
For graduation, she got me a golf. She knew I liked golf, so she bought me a golf umbrella. But on the little metal ends of the golf umbrella, she had like $50 bills hanging from each one. You know what I mean? So she just loved to make things fun and adventurous, and that was kind of her way, of showing love. And she was like a cuddly mom, like huggy and all that sort of thing. And anyway, she was a really good mom. Single mom. My parents divorced when I was like 6, so she really had to take care of all of us. And her main job was she rented daycare at our house, so she didn't make a lot of money, but she was an awesome mom.
Well, I appreciate you going there and kind of letting us in on that. I grew up raised with a single mom, and that's a special role. It's not just a mom. That's a hard lift. My mom was den mother and baseball coach, and just trying to fill in those. And I know she was special to you. And I appreciate you kind of letting us in on what she meant to you. It kind of gets into that learning the hard way, right? Life teaching us some things, and sometimes the only way we can learn things is the hard way. And unfortunately, we believe in a God, and He loves us. Part of that plan is that we are going to lose people that we love, at least for a season, right?
Yeah.
Gavin, there's a couple things that first of all, I think that you're telling that story is just, it's hilarious, man. And it makes me, I kind of feel like you have that same kind of personality. I know you like to make things fun, and I've had a few experiences with Gavin that just, are riotous.
I would say adventure, right? I would say
adventure, man. Gavin is up for up for anything at any given time. And that's one of the things I love about you. But there's, beyond that, you have a great family. You've got a career that you love. You inspire, I'm inspired to be better just from being around you. And that's not just from today's podcast. I mean, anytime that I've been around you, that's been the case. And so I'm super grateful for your, you talked about vulnerability before, and I think that you're one of my first examples of that. When we spent time together, with the youth, you were always someone that I looked to as to how to be vulnerable and connect on a different level. And so I love that about you. And as you know, Gavin, it's called the Richest Men in Town, right? And for us, that means different things. We haven't spent today talking about finances or anything like that. So what does it mean to you, Gavin Spencer, to be the richest man in town?
Well, I feel like I've been blessed with a lot of things in my life. Just growing up, I felt like I was blessed with a dad that taught me about sports, and I grew to love those sports, and I had some abilities to do that. And my mom taught me to sing, and that became a love that I had. And then I found a person to marry that is just the right person for me. I've got 4 kids that seem to be living great lives, and they're moving in the right direction. I have a job that's, people treat me well. I've got a supportive parent group, and I've got students that support me. And I've got a ward family that respects and cares about me. I mean, I feel really lucky. I feel like I don't really have any really big negative things in my life, just little things, I just feel like I have a lot. And I don't know why. That doesn't seem right that I have. You know what else is cool? I get to travel to Europe like every 3 years with my choir. I get some perks.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Life is just good. I don't know.
So far we've learned dentistry is a great gig, and it sounds like a music teacher is a great gig.
Yeah, I wish the salary schedule were flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gavin, I just when I hear you kind of recount and just keep score a little bit on some of the blessings you have in your life, the thought that comes to my mind is, by their fruit you shall know them. And anybody that knows you can see the fruit that you have in your life. It's not a Midas touch. I wouldn't give you that. But it is gilded. The things that you do well. And the energy that you put out there, the passion and purpose that you put out there, yield bountiful fruit, my friend. And we love you. I mean, we're presidents of the Gavin Spencer fan club, but there's a lot of folks in that fan club. And we appreciate you kind of letting us in a little bit on what it takes to live that richest life. I want to tell you, you're a great son. You're a great friend. You're a great dad. Great husband, so many things to a lot of people. And I just hope that we all realize how blessed we are, right? How fortunate we are. And we keep striving. We do something with the things you taught us tonight. So appreciate you, man. Appreciate just the spirit of this conversation that we've had this evening. It's made me a better man. And that's what this program's about.
Amen. And Gavin, if I could add one more thing. You're a decent golfer, and I'm going to be up there in a few weeks, and we're going to hit it, right? Let's get after it. So,
yeah, he's better than decent, brother. He's better than decent.
I know he is. I just,
you guys, I do appreciate you asking me to do this. It's very nice of you guys to say so many nice things, and it's just, you guys are people in my life that I look up to. And, I know there's a lot of, I have things I'm pretty good at, and then I see you guys, and I wish I had maybe more of that spiritual drive that you guys have. You know, you guys are just so focused, and you always have the right thing to say.
We got to bring him back more often, Tyler. We got to bring him back. He's making me feel pretty good.
I'm going to cut this clip and just play it for my wife over and over again.
You guys are awesome. This podcast idea, I mean, it's
you're a friend. You're a friend of the program, and let's do this again. Let's do this in person. Tyler's right. Let's swing some sticks and have a good time. But anytime you want to come back on, you're more than welcome, man.
Cool. Thank you, guys.
All right, be good. Do good things.
Love you, man. Love you too.
All right, have a good night.
All right, bye.
Thanks for your time. See ya.
Bye.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.